All right, what's going on, crew?
Guys.
Everybody just worked out. This is awesome. Ready to learn some stuff today. Can you guys hear me okay? My voice is going to fluctuate as I get more or less nervous, so just be prepared for that.
So I'm going to get a 10.
If I start zoning down, Kev will just be my megaphone for me. It'll just be like a repeat, okay? Well, thanks for coming out today. I think probably looking at this crowd, most of you are well-versed in health and nutrition. You've probably learned or tried maybe anything and everything. But I hope that by the end of today, I know you'll learn at least one new thing that you could take with you for this challenge. And really more so have a different mindset as you approach these next 50 days. Well, I guess it'll be like 43 now or 44, whatever amount of days. So, okay. After Koda Olympics, right? Important. So my name is Dr. Emily Boyich. I am a chiropractor just down the street here. And I know what you're thinking right now. You're probably like, don't you just crack backs? What do you know about nutrition? And no, I crack eggs. I don't crack backs. But I did. That was my first one. No, but I don't work, in our school, we don't work with medicine at all. We have to use every natural means that we can to help heal a body. So that does relate to what you ingest and what you put into it. So we did have to go through a rigorous curriculum of biochemistry and how foods react in the body and stuff like that. So
you had more than one nutrition class in your program?
I had plenty more than one. Yeah, actually I had over 200, I think came out to about 247 postgraduate hours with that. So, and I've gone above and beyond that degree as well, just learning because it is so important. So I promise. This will not be the food pyramid talk, okay? If you were waiting for that, please just leave now, okay? So I really don't like to talk about myself, but Kevin and I met the other day, went over this, and he was like, all right, you got to do a few intro slides, so I'll do it for you. At least we could familiarize ourselves with each other. So my CrossFit career started actually back in like 2012, so I've been doing this a while. I competed on team at regionals in 2014, which was a super awesome experience. After that, I like to play my strengths and avoid that cardio game, so I switched over to Olympic weightlifting, where I competed in 2 national championships. And met some pretty important people. Yeah, it was fun. But this is kind of where my passion of helping people started. Both Maggie and I have a similar mission of just making the biggest impact that we can as far as health and wellness is concerned. And so it really did start with CrossFit, and what an awesome entry, right? We've all lived that and kind of breathed it here, so it's cool to be in such an honorable crowd. But for me, in my story, I was influenced by chiropractic, so I decided to just delve a little bit further if I could, and really how I could help and make a bigger impact according to my passions. So Maggie and I have competed. We were friends before we started dating, even back in 2012, and so she's been doing this just as long as with me. Like I said, my passion is chiropractic, and so after my regionals and my fun competing there, I delved back into the books, and somehow they gave me this degree. I don't even know how. It just slipped through the cracks or something. And then we decided to open up Standard Chiropractic just down the street here. And by the way, I'm not going to sell you any shakes or anything. I'm not trying to get you anything. I literally just want you to learn something today, okay? So I know that last slide was glamorous, but I am not perfect, okay? I do love chips, so I want everybody to be, just let you know I don't have like a perfect life or anything. Yeah, I'm relatable. Let's talk about this. And anytime you want to cheat during this Fit and 50 challenge, I just want you to remember this mug, okay? It doesn't look like there's shadows under the eyes. Nothing looks happy here. I've got a full frown going. I'm mad at Maggie for taking this picture. It's never what you want during an eating challenge, right? So avoid those giant Costco bag of chips. Speaking of Maggie, she's not perfect either, and actually she's been like my project here. And so this is like one of my favorite pictures of her ever. This is how we met. Yeah. She's come a long way, okay? Let's give her that. I did want to kind of diagram this picture in a few different ways and just kind of note some of the items that I really hope you'll be avoiding in this Fit in 50 challenge.
Such a perfect picture.
But I want to talk about, in this lower left-hand corner, you can't probably make it out real clear, but that is Hidden Valley Ranch. So that is one of our top favorite condiments, even still to this day. In the middle, we have a nice 2 different beers here, which do also go up on her list. I know you can see the pizza box, and we see a piece of pizza here, but we also have a Dorito in the right hand. So she did have quite the diverse nutrition that day. And again, just like I said with the other one, if you want this lifestyle during the Fit in 50, just remember this mug. Not so happy, right? Well, this will give you the motivation that you needed, right, Marianne? Whenever you're feeling bad about your challenge. So why are we here, right? And why am I talking at you? I'm really passionate about the way that our country is kind of headed here, right? I want to make sure that we are part in reversing that. And a big thing that we all know, and you guys probably already have these rates and stats memorized, or if you don't, I do for you. But the adult obesity rate, and this doesn't directly apply to here, we're obviously, outside of the statistic a little bit, but the adult obesity rate is at 40% right now, and that's staggering because we're one of the most educated countries. It's really, really disappointing. Our youth obesity rate is actually almost 20%, and that was back in 2015, and the numbers have increased despite our increase of knowledge, right? And so the next one, this one really gets me going, chronic disease, right? So this is kind of like the basis, this is the gateway into that disease hood, but this rate is even higher, and this is where it hits home for me, where I know we have to change something with that, right? So 45%, that's almost 1 in 2. It's either you or your neighbor next to you is really what that comes down to. And chronic disease is defined as anything. It could be heart disease, diabetes, cancer, all the big scary things that we've heard and learned so much about. And maybe you're not affected by it, but I'm sure if I asked everyone to raise their hand, they know at least one person who is, and their life was changed by it. So this is another main driver for me, and I hope it is for you too as you take on this Fit in 50 challenge, okay? This is not just 50 days. This is going to be for the rest of your life, so just build up for it. And so what causes that disease cycle and that obesity cycle and stuff like that? And really, it's simple. It seems really complex, like why is the body doing this? Why is it attacking itself? But really what it comes down to is stressors, right? And that's such an annoying word. We're like, yeah, we're all stressed. We live in the U.S. We work 80 plus hours. We're stressed. We're going to be stressed. But stress comes in a variety of forms, right? And so I'm going to talk to you a lot more in depth about those later. But I wanted to put this up in case you didn't know what chronic diseases look like and kind of categorize them. So as you're looking at this, you could just hear me or block me out as you start reading things and relating the things up here. But I'm going to talk about them just briefly. So, starting with teens, my voice is quivering already, my goodness. The first one I like, and I'm really passionate about pediatrics and teens and adolescents and raising a generation that's going to be way healthier than us, right? And so this teens one, this one actually gets me, and all the parents in this room could probably relate here. We see the weight changes, carb cravings, anxiety. This one kills me. Why? How is our 7-year-old anxious? They don't even know. And so this is one we have to get down as well. Insomnia, so not sleeping. Something's disrupting their sleep pattern, something they're so naturally and innately born to do. And then acne. We've all, hopefully, not all of us, but majority of us have been through this acne phase as a teenager. And then the 20s to 30s range. So this is where it all kind of starts to pile up, right? We have to start here, and then we start working our way up. And that's where the body just kind of starts to absorb it, right? We have insulin resistance, depression. We just did a workout for depression and mental illness, right? It's extremely impactful, impacting. Insomnia, fatigue, ovarian cysts. A lot of people don't even know that they have these until they rupture. And it's a really, really pressing issue currently that nobody really talks about, but it is affected by diet and nutrition as well. endometriosis, PCOS, infertility, sexual dysfunction. This is not just a ladies list like these are, but obviously, this goes with both genders here. You really have to watch what you're eating. It does affect your system elsewhere, okay? Adult acne, which should never be, and then thyroid dysfunction as well. And as these guys start, this is almost like the middle of the storm, right? Like we're just starting to see these symptoms pop up. They're not really fully chronic diseases yet, but they develop into that, okay? So when we get up here with our wiser ages, we have diabetes, adiposities. And what I mean by adiposity is not just being overweight, but a weight that comes back, right? You lose it, and then it comes back, and then you lose it, and then it comes back. It's really like your body's safe zone here, and this is a hard fat to lose, harder. It's on your organs. It's on, things that are disrupting your endocrine system, big fat there, okay? Depression, again, stems up on the list there. Uterine fibroids, so these cysts here and endometriosis, they start to develop into almost like muscular tumors, even though the majority of them are benign. It really does attack the endocrine system. Hypothyroidism, and then infections. I see this one in my office all the time, actually, as recurrent infections and stuff like that. And that really, one of the major influences is really what we're putting into our body and how that interacts with our mucosal linings, okay? So it's way bigger than just losing weight, right? I think I drove that home. I always say that stress comes down to three things, 3 T's, actually: thoughts, traumas, and toxins. And we're going to delve into that a little bit more. So thoughts, this is the person. I feel like we can all relate to this picture, even though it's so simple. I want to drive this guy home because let's say we do the Fit in 50 challenge. You don't cheat a single time. You make all the workouts, but you're still working 80-hour weeks. You're still stressed with your marriage. You're still stressed with emotional stress, which is physically, it changes your anatomy, that stress. It's not stress you should just brush under the rug, right? And so I like to bring it back to thoughts and mindset and how you're going to approach this Fit in 50 days, right? One thing I hear all the time, like especially with people who do the Whole30 or something where they're drastically changing what they're eating, is I hear it's hard, right? It's hard. I don't want to do that. I might offend you here, and if I do, I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to. But really, it's not hard, right? Cancer is hard. Losing a loved one, that's hard. Dealing with things you can't change, extremely hard. But eating well and eating the way that your body's intended, not hard, okay? So let's change that mindset as we approach these 50 days, okay? The next one is traumas. This is an obvious trauma, right? This person will end up in my office, of course. This is a big one. So this takes a physical stress on the body. Your body, as soon as you have an injury like that, already starts producing hormones that don't allow you to lose weight very well and changes your metabolism, okay? And I know we like to think CrossFit is not traumatic at all, especially for her. She looks so happy doing it. But it is still a stressor, right? And we have to be able to listen to our bodies and take those rest days when we need to, and maybe change a workout so that you're not doing 110% output all the time, okay? Koda does a really good job with programming. I say it like all over my page. I love it. There's always something supplemental to the body, and I love it. So just stick to the programming, right? This person's extremely happy too. All rainbows. This is usually me after like any cardio workout. This is where we can all see trauma. And then these are the people that like stumble into my office. They're like, hey, help, I got traumas. This person, I don't want to name any names here. We couldn't figure out who this is, but we all know that one person in the gym, right, in your workout class. And I just want to... just to go back.
So good.
And then the major one and why we're all here is the toxins, right? This is the drive. I'm sorry. I wrangled Tony into coming today. I was like, you got to be there, otherwise it's not funny. So toxins, and this is the one that I really want to talk to you about today, because this is the one you're going to take home, and it's going to help you change this challenge ahead, okay? So I put this one up here. Man, this is a tough one. I don't know why it always comes back down to these, but usually when you start a diet, it's like, how often can I drink, right? That's what we hear. And I'm like, you can't. That's part of the challenge. You can't drink, right? We all saw her picture. Yeah, exactly. But no, I really want to educate just a second on this slide because there's so much misinformation and really it's so tempting to like be in a social environment and everybody's drinking, having a good time. And you're like, all right, I got to have a beer. I got to have 2 beers. And then the sequela starts, right? The clause, no laws with the clause. That's what I hear. But I want to tell you something, especially going into this challenge, and that kind of falls into this is not hard thing. The body, so alcohol is a known toxin to the body, right? It takes about 7 to 10 days to completely detoxify that toxin from your body, but it doesn't actually stop there. So that's a really big thing, right? If you're eating so well, but your body's still in this detox mode, it's really having an uphill battle there, okay? So that's for about 7 to 10 days. And it doesn't end there, like I said. Afterwards, so the digestive enzymes and the way that your intestinal system works in order to clarify that and get that out, it takes a lot of output there. And in order to replenish and resupply those hormones in your gut to digest food the way that you're supposed to in a high metabolism state, it takes about 18 to 32 days. So when you say to me, you're doing this Fit and 50 challenge, you're not losing any weight, and you went to a wedding or a block party, and you drank that night, and you drank there, the first thing I'm going to ask you is when was the last drink that you had, and why are you struggling there, right? Because your body isn't in the state that it's supposed to be in order to lose weight, right? It's recovering still. So really, if you're wanting to go in this hard, you're wanting to change your body, and you're wanting to change the way that your metabolism works, just remove this for the next 50 days, okay, and see how you do. I know it's hard, especially the beer. Beer's hard. What?
I'll be a lot less funny though.
It's okay. Full disclosure, as long as everyone knows, Casey will be less funny, okay?
My singing's very worried about that.
Yeah. So what other toxins do we face? What do we have to say no to, right? These guys, I want to stop here before I move on to the next pictures here because this slide just like kills me. This is the U.S., and this is it. Does anyone know what these are? Yeah, exactly. They're called Smarties, right? So if you were a kid and you're looking at this picture right here, what are you more drawn to?
Yes.
Yes, I like that answer. What are you more drawn to? The right. Look at how vibrant these are, right? Yeah, you're like, I got to go with my home country. This right side, this kills me. It's so vibrant, it doesn't even look edible to me. It looks like a picture. But the slogan to me that kills me all the time is I always remember Eminem saying, they melt in your mouth but not in your hand, right? And you're like, and everyone's like, yeah, they don't melt in my hand anymore. I could sit outside in 120-degree weather and they're gonna remain the same, right? And is that okay? Like, did anyone ask that question? Is that even okay? What happens to the body? Like, why do they only melt in my mouth? That creeps me out. And it's because there's actually, and that is true, by the way, they only melt in your mouth, because they interact with an enzyme in your mouth. The dyes and the lakes there that they've put to encapsulate these guys only react with the enzyme in your mouth, which then allows them to liquefy, and then they start to melt, right? But Smarties, you hold these outside on 120 degree, you have like chocolate soup in your hand, right? And that's kind of a natural thing for chocolate to do. So I just wanted to look at this. I'm not saying, in the Fit and 50 challenge, eat the Smarties. Yeah, no. I'm just saying, I want you to look at the slide and see when you walk through the grocery store, like, why are aisles so vibrant? Why does it all have to be that way? And so, yeah, let's avoid both of these, but just think of this as you're walking through the grocery store, okay? People are trying to like plant us and sabotage us with those colors and stuff like that, and just rise above and be proud of yourself that you're not doing that in the first place. These guys kills me. This makes me thirsty even just looking at it. It's so amazing. But this also has the same amount of food dyes and lakes in it, and those, by the way, are neurotoxins. They don't just affect your gut, they actually attack your brain as well. And there's not many things that can penetrate the blood-brain barrier, but that is one of those things, and it's actually been banned in many countries. So let's avoid these two. I'm sorry if I offended. Tony, I feel like you're a Gatorade drinker. I'm sorry. Yeah, electrolyte. No, there are so many other ways to get electrolytes, I promise you. Does anybody remember this? Has anyone seen this before? This guy? This is what I said I'm not going to enforce. This just kills me. I love how fats and oils like barely made the list up there, right? It was like pasta overload. Let's just eat all the carbs. And this actually came out in 1992, and despite it being such like a crappy image, it still made quite the impact, right? People took this and they used it as justification to eat however they wanted to and eat the way that felt good, right? At the time, not later. So that brings me to my next question. This one comes up in CrossFit all the time because I see the macro counters, which is awesome. I'm not opposed to that at all if you're doing it appropriately. But do ingredients really matter? And I would say that they do. Some of these, one of the ones on here, it said rapeseed oil. Like what? What even is that? That's creepy. And we also have high fructose corn syrup. That's like a major hitter that we all hear. Azodicarbonamide, we can't even say that word. And those, and I don't just want you to put them in a category and be like, yeah, but I ate them once and I was okay and everything's fine. But those completely deteriorate your gut, right? The lining of your gut is extremely sensitive, and that's why we're seeing stuff like leaky gut. I'm sure we've all heard that, right? Or GI issues. Have you ever gone to a GI appointment and you look in the waiting room? There's like every age, there's a ton of people there waiting, first of all, and our guts are almost destroyed because of what we're consuming here like this, okay? So ingredients do matter. Just avoid stuff like this in the Wonder Bread and stuff if you can, and use a different macro, and they've supplied already a grocery list that is compliant with that, so that let's all be happy for that. Just stick to that if you can. So this, yeah.
So when you see like when it says natural flavors, is that kind of the same thing as that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's our government's way of like just gatewaying things into there, you know. And really too, it does matter. Like one thing that bothers me is I actually like LaCroix, but it also says natural flavors in there, and I want to just like go to their plant and be like, all right, show me them. What are the natural flavors? Let's be honest about that. Yes, yeah, exactly. And you're like, oh, it's another thing I got to give up now. Yeah, but really, that's a really good question, and it is, again, that like label misdemeanor that they're just trying to like sneak it past us, and you have to be smarter than that, right? We have to really look. Exactly.
That's what glyphosate is, like the active ingredient in alpha.
So.
It's also because it is natural in like lemons and fruits and stuff, right?
Yeah.
As like a protectant.
Yeah.
Within.
That's like the good ones, though, right? Yeah. Those could be the good ones that we all hope is the only natural flavor in there. But technically, anything that comes from the ground, which can be, mutilated in a lab still, is technically still defined as natural flavors. You really don't know. Good question. Oh, this guy, I didn't even get to talk about this. I got so excited. This was our chronic disease rate, and this is what I was just driving home. This is where we're headed if we continue to eat like this. And really the two do go hand in hand, right? We keep adding foods. We have like 6 to 8 meals is the recommendation now a day. We have all these foods. We just keep eating, and we keep getting worse and worse as far as chronic disease is concerned in the U.S. And that's why I really want to nip this in the butt and drive it home. So this slide always it almost like irritates me, right? All calories are made equal. Count your macros and you'll be okay. You don't have to worry about those ingredients. Kiko, calories in, calories out, right? Just burn more than you eat and you'll lose weight, and it's that simple. And if you ever if you resonate with any of these things, you really want to know how I feel about it, I'll tell you. It's just it's not enough for me, right? I'm too nerdy, too analytical, and I don't trust that at all. So this is the one that like kills me, is eat 6 meals a day, right? And I want to give you guys some take home in a way that you can actually change what you're eating right now in a very simple way. And so this is going to kind of segue into that, right? One that eat 6 meals a day, never get hungry, never let yourself get hungry. You got to keep fueling that metabolism, right? Eat all day. But in 1977, we actually only averaged 2 to 3 meals a day. We didn't have any rates of chronic obesity back then. We didn't have the chronic diseases that we do now. And so there's a lot of things that kind of go along with this, okay? So now that average has gone to 6 meals a day, okay? Which means that there's a lot of people eating more than 6 meals a day, basically. It's in the middle of that, Tony. That's why he got put up there. So we have breakfast, a mid-morning snack, lunch, afternoon snack, dinner, snack between soccer halves, because God forbid you go a full soccer game without eating. And then dessert, and even a bedtime snack. We wanted to throw that in there. Like, do you see what I'm getting at? How much are we eating? Why are we eating all of this all the time at every hour in the day? It just doesn't make sense to me. So that's another guy. So what that means is that we're constantly fueled, and we're never allowing the body to actually oxidize your own fat and your own energy stores for fuel, right? So you're not increasing your metabolism. In fact, you're slowing it down. You're bogging your body down, and that 6 to 8 meals regimen just isn't working for us as it is. Unless you're, if you're one of those people in this audience today that has, the most ravenous metabolism, and your thyroid is cranking overtime all the time, and you have to eat those meals, I totally get it. But for the vast majority of the population, that's not true, okay? So what happens when you eat all day? You're giving your body the instructions to store fat every minute of every day. You're never challenging it to actually use the fat cells that we have on the body. And that's a constant inflammatory state. And I want to break this down just a little bit more, because we're like, yeah, inflammation, we're all inflamed. But really, the act of eating is inflammatory to your body, right? Your body has to heat up in order to digest whatever you're doing. So it's still extremely inflammatory just to eat in general. I'm not saying go home and be anorexic, but what do you think that means when you're doing it 8 times a day, right? It's just a constant surge. So let's change that a little bit. High blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, liver damage, cancer, IBD, and cancer again. Those all come from constant inflammation. Inflammation's at the source of all disease, basically, in our bodies. That's simple science. So what can we do about it? I had a few people ask me about fasting, because Maggie and I have actually been fasting for almost 5 years now. And it's not a diet, and it's not a fad, it's not at all. It's just kind of changing the times that you're eating in accordance with what your body naturally does, right? And if you're triggered right now and you're like, I'm leaving, I'm not coming for this fasting talk, you could totally leave, it's okay. I will totally understand. But I want to just give you a few tidbits so you could learn about your body to maybe maximize what you are eating within that time frame, okay? So what happens when you fast? If you continue your same type of food and the same amount, so even if you ate all of the crappiest things, but you only shrank your eating time down to allow your body the natural process that it's so built to do, you actually increase your metabolism just in that alone, right? So think of what you would do if you actually were compliant with the grocery list that you had and then did that exponential, right? So I like to bring this one up because it's sugar burner versus a fat burner, right? If you're eating all day, what do you think you are? Sugar. Good job. Sugar burner, right? You always have something to work off. 10 points. I would rather be a fat burner. I'd rather allow my body the opportunity to actually use what it has on it. What'd you say?
He's getting a lot.
Okay. So how to fast and what type, right? There's like 10,000 different types of fasting. I'm not going to bore you with all of them. But there is so much research, and I'm a giant nerd. Like anyone who comes to my office knows, you don't leave until you're perfect. I have data, I have screens going, right? It all has to be measurable, quantifiable, and we have the research to back this up. It's just tremendous out there what the body does when it's in its natural state of fasting, okay? So we like intermittent fasting, and I like to introduce this one. This is like the gateway into fasting. It's the gateway world because it's so easy to do. Maybe not the first week, but it is really an easy thing. The circadian rhythm. So the circadian rhythm is something that just kind of gets thrown out there, but it's an amazing thing that your body does, and it regulates over 10,000 genes in your body without you thinking or doing anything. Like just sit and stomach that for a second. Your body just naturally evolves to what the earth is doing around a time clock. It's crazy to me. So cool. And so during that circadian rhythm, your organs actually respond, especially the liver, especially the pancreas, which are two major parts of digestion. Those get ramped up and turned down during certain times in the day, right? And so that's why when we change our eating windows and we start kind of shaving it down a little bit, we're really just honoring that full rotation and respecting it, right? So it's not too hard on the body. It's really easy for it to get on board. Your body tends to shut down around 7 p.m., okay? So that's when the pancreas stops releasing those enzymes. That's when the liver starts suppressing that stuff and gets into its like rest and digest phase, right? It just allows the body a much more natural and a much better way to metabolize the food that you have. It then starts to wake and ramp back up at about 4 a.m., okay? So you've got a surge of stuff here. And I like to bring this one up because at that time after 4 a.m., in conjunction with the sun and the way the body is hardwired already, you get a huge surge of growth hormone, which is awesome in CrossFit, right? We get stronger. We get adrenaline. You get a big old cortisol pump, right? Naturally. And that's with no breakfast. There's no food involved in that. Your body already gave you the tools that it had to in order to get you to the gym, right? So that's why it really bothers me when everyone's like, breakfast is the most important part of the day. You have to have 10 bananas before you work out, right? Like we've all been there. There's people like eating out of Tupperware before they do a set. And it's really just, it's not true, I'll be honest.
Like the word breakfast is literally break fast.
Right.
Like,
That's all it means. Which breaking your fast and how you break your fast is extremely important, right? What are we putting into our body? It is a really important meal, but it doesn't mean that it has to be as soon as you wake up, right? It's just been bastardized, and that's what we've been trained and learned over time. And so really this happens. You have all the 5 a.m.ers are like, preach, we're not hungry at 5 a.m. anyway, we're ready to go. But really it is true. You have all the tools that you need to do that 5 a.m. or 5:30 workout in the morning, and you don't need a banana right before, I'll be honest with you, okay? This is the largest regulatory system within the human frame, is just adapting to the circadian rhythm. We already talked about that. Okay, so the first 2 weeks are the hardest. I will be honest with you, because why, right? Like sugar is a drug, and you're dependent on it. As you learn and you become a sugar burner and everything is just reliant on that, your body gets really used to it. And I think even like Justine mentioned the other day, she's like, I'm going through withdrawals. Like I haven't had the sugar that I've been used to, and my body's shaking, and it's really weird. And that is what makes intermittent fasting at first a little more difficult. It's very easy as you go on, but at first you do have to kind of withdraw from what your norm is, right? But then your sleep begins to regulate because you're following the circadian rhythm, which is huge. If you're not sleeping, or you're not getting into deep sleep, or your sleep is constantly disrupted, first of all, your aerobic capacity goes down by more than 20%. So you're not performing in the gym the way that you want to. Your body's overproducing cortisol, so you can't even metabolize the foods that you're eating. So you really need that sleep. And that's why in each challenge that they do, I've already talked to both of them and heard, they really drive home sleep. And it's a huge, huge component as far as health and wellness is concerned and as far as losing weight is concerned. So make sure you take that and hone in on that as well, okay? It starts to stabilize your hormones. Why? I already told you. The pancreas and the liver are doing exactly naturally what they're intended to do, and those hormones start to stabilize, okay? It's just a very, very easy thing that they do. There's a select few people, and I can see some brains already ticking here, right? We've heard like adrenal fatigue, and is fasting's not good for women, and fasting isn't. If you are working out 4 to 5 times a day, you're training for the games, and your body is constantly out of energy, like they don't have the fat stores that they need in order to use those in a way that fasting allows. It's an unnatural state of being, right? You're never working out for 8 hours a day. So those people, if you start to challenge the body with fasting and you're never hitting enough calories, yes, your hormones are going to deplete. But again, that doesn't apply to the majority of the people in this room, okay? And if you have a question about that, please ask me after. I'll definitely talk it through with you. Inflammation reduction, it's obvious reasons. And then the thing that I love most about fasting, and to answer a few of your questions, like there's no cost. There's no side effects besides health. It really is like one of the easiest transitions. Actually, you save a bunch of money because you're not buying Tupperware and 6 meals a day and 5 paleo caveman meals, right? You have a set time to eat, saves you time, money, and there's no side effects besides being really, really healthy and natural. After the first week, too, the hunger starts to dissipate as your body begins to use fat for the adaptive state. And everybody that I've talked to that's ever fasted has confirmed that, right? I see some heads nodding in the crowd here. We see that our body just becomes very in tune with it. We're not even hungry anymore, right? Because we're not dependent on that sugar load. It uses your fat first, truncal fat. And I love to talk about this because this is like the basis of all disease, is the fat that hugs your organs, right? So it's not just like I have some cottage cheese on my legs. It's full fat encasing an organ, encasing a heart, encasing a liver, encasing a pancreas that bogs down the system and allows it not to function efficiently the way that it's supposed to. And it's extremely inflammatory. And when you fast, that's the first fat that goes. It's the closest thing in proximity. It starts depleting immediately. Just for like a personal experience, my mom had cancer, weight issues all of her life. Every MRI she ever had showed liver adipose, and she actually went on an extended day fast where she fasted for 12 days. And then she got an MRI right after, and the adiposity didn't even show up on the MRI. So 12 days. Yeah. See, that's where I say intermittent fasting is like the gateway. Like, there's a whole world out there, right? And I'm not saying you guys should be fasting for 12 days. Don't take it like that. She was in a life or death state, right? And was dependent on it. And so the MRI showed that the adipose was reduced off of her organs. That makes sense?
Is there anyone to tell her what to do after that?
Me. I was the one. I've studied this. I've learned it. And she really took a leap of faith on me, and I'm really glad that she did. Because now she's a boss. She knows it as well as I do. Maybe more, even.
You have to, not work or participate.
She said now she fasts when she needs to work the hardest. She said after day 4, day 5, she calls it tiger blood clarity, where everything became primal and she was honed in. She never forgot anything. She went to she's a safety manager, so she went to a first aid class. And it was a respiratory. It was like a specialized class, and she's like, I don't think I'm going to pass. I'm going to fast so that I get through this. And everybody was going out, drinking and partying, in between the event. And she crushed it. She got like 100%. She uses it to train her brain, which is one of my favorite parts of fasting.
I'm really passionate. It's like that changed my life. But I'm a software engineer. I use my brain, and when I'll do like 5 or 6 day fast sometimes, and same thing. You just feel like that.
Love it.
You're just
Thank you.
in the zone. And
Yeah.
as soon as you eat, you're out.
Exactly. Right.
So I have a question. You were the one who kind of got me into fasting, and I'm on week 3. So you're right. I'm not feeling hungry anymore.
Yeah.
But I was concerned that I had to not force feed myself, but make sure I was eating. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
I started with the 16-8.
Yes.
And now I'm really not super hungry, but I don't know when to eat or how to make sure I'm actually eating.
Yeah, that's a really, really, really great question. I'm going to touch on it a little bit, but I'll give you a brief answer here just to be sure that I cover it. As your body switches into that fat adaptive state, it starts to produce ketones, okay? And so ketones are basically like the fat's version of sugar. It's one that it's a sugar your body naturally makes, but the side effect of that is an appetite suppressant, right? Which is cool. You're like, I'm not even hungry. But at the same time, if we're working out all the time and we need to be hitting our certain amount of calories, my biggest recommendation to you is going to be to really listen to your body and to adapt what you are eating so that if you're having trouble actually hitting that calorie content, eating more dense foods. So a really big steak, a fatty steak, and not being afraid of that and knowing that you're starting to chip away at that calorie count. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, skip the carrots on that day. You gotta bulk it up, okay? And thank you for sharing, by the way. I appreciate that.
Those fasts are a lot, though. Day 3 of an extended fast is horrible.
Yeah.
Once a quarter.
Yeah, quarterly. That's what my mom does as well.
Can we
Yeah.
ask your family how?
That's a better answer, right?
I just don't.
It's weird. While eating, I go get stuff done.
Yeah, it's hard. Well, who's ever gone to a pasta party, right? And then afterwards you're your whole body just shuts down, right? It's very boggy. And so that just kind of is telling in and of itself, right? I call it the post-lunch blues. In school, you see kids after lunch and they're all slob kebabs in their seats, just, going down. So how to do fasting, and this might help Kaylee a little bit too as well. I always recommend this guy to start. 14:10 is a good way to start too. Like if you're really struggling making that window, and I'll explain what this means in a second. But this is like the easiest way to go about it. Okay, so these ratios. This is the fasting, so the left side fasting versus the window of eating frame, right? In a 24-hour time frame. And 16:8 is the one that respects your circadian rhythm the most, and so that's why I like that one, because it's very easy to sustain for almost 5 years now, okay? And so what that means is within this 8-hour window, that's when you get to consume your calories, right? That's when you get to eat, and that could even come out to like 2 to 3 meals, like 1977, in that time frame, right? It's just a later lunch and a dinner, or a later lunch and a dinner and a snack, right? You have that whole window to eat. And when you think about it, so sleep counts in this fasting window, okay? So you have 16 hours. If 8 of those hours are spent fasting, or spent sleeping, then you're really only skipping breakfast, right? You could push your lunch to like, instead of at 11 a.m. lunch, then you're pushing it to noon, you know, or you're pushing it just a little bit later. So you're really only skipping breakfast, not too hard. As you get into fasting, you get kind of crazy. Maggie and I used to compete. We're like, I'm fasting 18 hours, I'm fasting 20 hours. And so I've kind of stuck with the 20 to 4 or OMAD, which is 1 meal a day. And I'm not saying you should do that, and especially you, Kaylee, if you're not even hitting your calorie content. I can eat about 4,000 calories in 1 meal if I wanted to. I'm not proud of that fact, but I can. And also, I'm a type 1 diabetic, so this means I only have to take insulin 1 time a day. So I have about the same insulin levels as what would a 5-year-old, basically, which is kind of cool for me. I don't have to shoot myself as much, right? And so that's the way to go about it. And then eventually, as we started learning more and more about fasting, I learned about Bulletproof. And first and foremost, like, I'm a neurology nerd. Everything comes back to the brain, right? It runs everything. And Bulletproofing is a way to kind of clean out your brain and allow it to enhance the fast that you're getting, okay? And it actually makes fasting easier, which is really cool. And so I'll just talk briefly about that. I feel like I'm talking at you guys too much, but Bulletproof fasting. So what it is, and I put coffee up there, but also green tea works. I've seen a lot of people do like a matcha with it. But basically what it is we put a tablespoon of ghee, which is a form of butter, okay? So they heat up butter, and then they remove the milk solids. So actually people who are lactose intolerant can usually tolerate ghee, which is really cool. And then another tablespoon of brain octane oil. And brain octane, has anyone out there heard of MCT oil? Yeah. It's a medium chain triglycerides, which is what your body is basically running off of when you're fasting, okay? And so brain octane, I like that brand. You could get whatever MCT oil you want, but that brand really is the best one as far as cognition is concerned, in my experience, okay? So a tablespoon of that, and then whatever coffee you're drinking in the morning, okay? So, or the matcha, if you want to do decaf, if you don't like caffeine, totally fine. There's other ways around it, and then you blend the 3, okay? I know what you're thinking. You're like, you're supposed to be fasting through this time, and is it going to break your fast? It actually doesn't break your fast. Because with ghee, the milk solids are removed, there's no carb component to it, okay? So your body, anytime you eat a full fat like that, it takes about 14 to 16 hours for your body to store it. It's much compared to 2 to 3 hours for carbs and proteins like that. So it never actually gets into your body where your body's working off that fat right away. It stores it first, and then it uses it, which enhances your metabolism, okay? Does anyone have a question with that?
I'm curious about one element of it. The only thing sweet that I eat in a day is like my keto creamer that has powdered MCT oil and like a stevia erythritol combination.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious whether something
That
like
would break your
would be
fast.
a good way to phase out that, because I know that I crave the coffee for the opportunity to have the sweetness.
Okay.
And I'm just curious if
It's a really good question.
If
So
you
are you
were-
asking if you could still drink that and not break
more
your fast?
asking whether that's a way to
Like
ease
start
out
into it?
sweet taste, because I know it still drives it a little bit.
So is stevia and erythritol still sweet?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, really sweet.
But
Yeah.
this is really not super sweet, and I was the same way. Like, I would like treat like coffee as a carb, and Kevin told me that was wrong. But it wasn't the coffee that was the carb; it was all the shit I was putting in the coffee. But this frothy, yummy.
Yeah.
It's like not sweet, but it's really satisfying.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say, and I hope I don't lose you here, but I'm gonna say a hard no, okay? And simply because when you train, so there's a lot of science that goes behind it, but when you train your body to crave a sweet, it makes it reliant neurologically, right? It's less about digestion and more about like the way that your body responds to that sweetness, right? So if you go with fasting and your body begins to be deprived of that, everything starts to regulate. So you may not actually even crave sweets after these 50 days. Okay? It will change drastically, and you'll know what I mean at about day 14, I would say. Okay? So if you can pass, if you could take a leap of faith on me and just jump in on the Bulletproof and try it for these days and see, I think it would really benefit you.
Bulletproof plus the sweet.
Plus the sweets. Yeah. I would say no. Just for this, just try it out, okay? And that goes for like smoothies too. If you have a protein shake, so protein has carbs in it. I know it's so hard in the morning. Protein does have carbs in it, so it breaks your fast. You don't actually get the benefits of fasting out of it. If it has a single carb in it, it breaks your fast, okay? So, yeah. Yes, sir.
Do you think of Bulletproof as sort of the kick-off of the morning energy, or is this something that we would use at different times of the day?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. And for me, it is. For me, it's how I start my day. It's part of my routine, and it really does help prolong my fast. So I actually can go 23 to 24 hours without even being hungry using it, and it's really, really amazing in that way.
We'll talk a little bit about like exercise application, but it might be a little different answer if you're working out at 5:30 a.m. and if she's not working out that day, it could be a slightly different.
Yeah. I mean, I still drank my Bulletproof right before the 6:30 a.m. class, but sometimes I've waited and had it after as well. I just try to listen to my body and see what it needs at that time. Yeah.
So I've done this mixture before.
Yeah.
And it makes me like super jazzed. Like there's something about the
Sue, I want to see that.
I would be a little leery of using it at a different time of day because you're just like
Yeah. And that goes for any caffeine, right? Like if you're drinking caffeine at like the 2 p.m. crash, you've already interrupted your circadian rhythm. So it's kind of defeats the purpose of fasting in the first place. So I would keep it closer to the time that you wake up. I hear people say too they don't want to drink coffee as soon as they wake up. I don't blame them at all because that teaches your body to rely on the caffeine instead of the cortisol, growth hormone, and adrenaline. It's naturally surging, and so really you could wait 30 minutes to an hour, but really keep it before 11 a.m. is what I would say at the very, very latest. Okay.
Do one of those or two, or?
One is enough. Yeah. One, but honestly, on days that I really want to fast longer, or I want to do a 36-hour fast or stuff like that, then I'll put two tablespoons in there actually, but I wouldn't go over two. Your body, you're bogging your system down and not allowing it its natural process. So.
In the bottle it says start with a teaspoon, and you really should listen to that.
Yeah, you work your way up to a tablespoon.
And if your body doesn't, if you make powdered MCT oil too, like if your body doesn't tolerate that?
They do. Yeah.
It's a little more
It's different, I would say. Yeah. Look on Bulletproof. There's a company called Bulletproof, and I love it because it is a super, super clean website for once. I love it. But if you look on Bulletproof, there are alternatives for that as well. Okay, and I trust them. If you have questions, just shoot me a picture of it. I'll tell you yay or nay. Okay. So it facilitates the fast, just like I said. This is my favorite thing, and probably what I'll be close to ending on, is that it actually penetrates your blood-brain barrier. Okay, so as you sleep, your brain pulls toxins out of it. It's like a sewage system almost, okay? Not many things break through there besides your spinal fluid, okay, and blood. And so when we actually use brain octane oil or an MCT oil that's ultra-filterized enough that it can actually break through that barrier, it will help clean the brain out. And that's a really huge thing. So fasting has been shown to decrease neurodegenerative diseases, which, does anybody have a family member with Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's? Like Parkinson's runs rampant in my family, and especially more prone with people with type 1 diabetes. And so by fasting alone, I'm already decreasing my chances of getting that because I've deprived the brain what it needs to store those plaques. But as you add in brain octane oil, it actually enhances that process and will help that pull the toxins out of your brain and reduce and diminish the amount of plaques that are building up in there naturally, okay? Does that make sense? So much more than just the gut. So this is what brain octane oil looks like, and you can get it on Amazon. It's really not that expensive. You could get it anywhere. You could get it at a health food store, wherever you'd like to get it. Natural groceries, yeah, exactly. They also have a grass-fed ghee, which I trust, but we buy different brands of ghee as well. You kind of have to find one that you like the best. Just make sure that it is grass-fed and it is a source that you trust. And if you have questions, like I said, just shoot me an image or something.
So with the bulletproof fasting, that's all you would have for the day?
No, for the fast.
For the fast.
For the fast. The only thing allowed in that fast. Yeah. Once your window opens, it's like Christmas. Every night is Christmas. I get to eat this. I get to eat this. I get my steaks. I get sweet potato. I get, the nutritious foods that are on that grocery list. Really, that bulletproof is the only thing that's allowed during that fasting window. Okay? Yeah. Good question. Okay, so this is Coach Kev's turn. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
All right, so most of you guys know me. I'm Kevin. So I'm one of the owners here with Casey. And I've given a lot of quick background on where I came from and my own personal story and stuff like that. But I want to dive in a little further, more than my quick elevator pitches I give people when they walk in the door. So growing up, I played a lot of sports. Baseball, played basketball, dabbled in football and stuff like that, and I was, drinking a lot of soda, just eating sugar, and, you can kind of get away with it a little bit when you're little, and when you're a little bit younger. So growing up, doing all that, and then I played college baseball. I kind of focused just on baseball, and I like my quick elevator pitches. In college, I drank a few beers, ate okay, had a little fun, but not too much fun. And then when I graduated college, I drank way too many beers, I ate way too much fast food, kind of just stopped working out, stopped doing anything athletic or anything like that. And my early 20s, the graph that Em put up there, I had a lot of the symptoms of, when I was younger, but really in the 20 to 30 range, I had a lot of those symptoms. And, I was a college athlete. I felt like I was, so healthy and all that stuff. And I tell people, the very basics of, at one point in my life, I got up to 242 pounds, and I played baseball about the size that I am right now. But I got up to 242. I remember looking on the scale, and I was just like, man, this is not what I want to be doing. So then that was, I started working out a little bit, dabbled in CrossFit, and I didn't dabble, I went right into it. I don't know why I said that. That's kind of my mindset is I kind of have an addictive personality, so I was either going to be drinking a ton of beers, eating fast food, or I was just all in. So I went all in, and I really wanted to, to feel like an athlete again, and over the course of about 9 or 10 months, I got down to 185. And I actually remember the specific day that I was in 185. I was like, man, I think I need to gain some more weight. I think I'm too skinny now. So that's kind of my own personal story. But the thing, that's what I tell people walking in the door is because people always like to focus on weight and stuff like that. But, I had a lot of crazy symptoms that, I'm still dealing with some random things. Like she was talking about cyst formation. So I have these fatty cysts that showed up during college when I was drinking and eating crappy food and got worse and worse. And I go to the doctor and they it's just genetic. There's nothing you can do about it. You can get it removed. So I got all these cysts removed from my backside and stuff like that. And then I was even having a conversation the other day, and I was telling someone else that had some cysts about this. And I was like, yeah, I have a little one on my wrist. And I was like, oh, it's gone. All right, sweet. So literally I'm still getting rid of some of those toxins that were from 8-9 years ago before I had started CrossFit and before I had started eating healthier and all that stuff. So, that's not... There's a lot of things like that I'm not going to necessarily tell somebody walking in the gym when I'm just giving my quick little elevator pitch, but it's not just about weight. It's not just about on the scale. It's not, just about our body fat. There's a lot of other stuff going on. So, my own personal story, I just wanted to educate myself to be able to get into better shape and to, feel like an athlete again. And so I read a million books. I started listening to all these different podcasts and all this stuff and kind of just educated myself. And then I've owned a gym for the last 7 years and coached, a year before that, and I've worked with thousands of athletes. So I'm kind of coming at it a little bit more from the application side from a gym and seeing people walk in the door, how they approach workouts, and then how they approach things outside the gym, at least what they tell me. Usually my experience is like whatever somebody tells you, it's usually probably 50% worse than whatever they're willing to admit. If someone says they sleep like okay, they're horrible. They're horrible sleepers. If they eat okay, they don't eat very well. So that's just kind of my own personal experiences. I've worked with a lot of people, and coming at it from the exercise perspective, I want you guys to know, and Em kind of touched on this, I was annoying people a little bit with talking about coming to this nutrition seminar. I'm not selling any products. We're not selling any products. Like, we do stock like some protein and some stuff like that, but I actually recommend people like, hey, get all of your nutrients from real food. Like, don't even take the protein that we sell, but we just stock it here because if someone's going to have protein, then I want them to get it from a decent quality source. So whenever you're getting nutrition information or guidance or anything like that, you kind of have to know where the motivation is coming from. Am I going to, at the end of this, put up there that we're selling bulletproof coffee and MCT oil, and we have our own Koda brand that, like, there's usually some motivation behind there when someone's giving you some nutrition information. So my motivation is I want more gym members, and I want a really successful gym, and I want people to have these awesome stories of, I started here and now I'm here. And that's my motivation, is I want all of you guys and everyone walking in the door to get awesome results, not just, on the scale, but feeling like we're living an amazing life and we have so much energy every day, ready to attack every day. So that's my motivation behind this. I'm not going to sell any other products. Just wanted to throw that out there. All right, so coming from a exercise perspective, the body uses 3 different fuel sources, and it's always a blend, no matter what you're doing, whether you're walking or doing a really, really intense assault bike sprint or something like that. So just real quick, the 2 main energy sources are aerobic. So when we're doing aerobic workouts, and I really like that it just ended up being like this, we programmed an aerobic workout today. Who did the workout today? Raise your hand. Be proud. Awesome. So we did a 20-minute workout. Whenever you're doing a longer session like that, it's going to be a little less intensity. Obviously, if you guys did the workout, you're not running out the door as fast as you can on that 400-meter run or on our row. So think when we're at a little bit lower heart rate, and we're a little bit lower intensity, we're utilizing fat for energy. Is that a good thing? I'm going to ask a lot of questions because I'm going to make sure you guys are awake at this point. Thank you. Sweet. So when we're utilizing fat for energy, we are at a very sustainable pace, and there's very minimal cortisol release and adrenaline and other hormones that we want to try to save as much as possible, and then way less inflammation. So you kind of think of it as like almost a regenerative type of workout. If we were just to sit on the assault bike at like a 50% effort, you got to change your mindset, Casey. Got to change your mindset. If we were just to... All right, we'll use some examples in class. So give me an example. What's our assault bike RPMs? Amber, she always lies every time. What's your real number you've been hitting? 71. Sweet. So she's holding 71 RPMs. So let's say that she's holding like 40 RPMs. Is that going to be hard? No. You go test it out. That's really easy. So if Amber was to go on there for 20 minutes, hold 40 RPMs, she could chat as much as she wants to with Taryn. She could check her emails if she wanted to and just use her legs and hold 40 RPMs. That would be mostly using fat and oxygen for energy. There's still a little bit of carb utilization. There's still a little bit of creatine phosphate, which we're not even going to talk about because you're just going to use it anyway. Pretty easy effort. So the opposite of that, anaerobic, not aerobic. We're utilizing liver glycogen first, and then it goes to your muscle glycogen. All that is, what does glycogen sound like? Glucose? What's glucose? Sugar. So we're using muscle sugar. So this type of effort, let's say that Amber's going 71 RPMs on the assault bike. How long do you think you could hold that if you had to guess? 50 seconds. About 50 seconds, give or take. So when Amber is going at a high effort on that assault bike, that is not a sustainable pace. She can only go for 50 seconds. It's very stressful on the body during that workout and after the workout. She's getting some cortisol release. She's basically inflaming her body. Her body is going to get an inflammation response to have to recover from that workout. So when we're looking at this, all right, which energy source do you want to use optimally? Tony always knows my answers. Yeah, I've done that too much in class. Boom. We want to use both. So when we talk about this, we don't want to hit that anaerobic system like all the time. That is very, very taxing on the body, but there are some positives to it. So we've been open a year now. We've got our anniversary party today. Anyone wants to come back at 4 p.m. today? Come back at 4 p.m. if you want to have fun with us. So we've been in Colorado for a year, and it is healthier here. I will say it's healthier. We came from Oklahoma. I owned and ran a gym for over 6 years in Oklahoma, and as you can imagine, in Oklahoma, it's a little different clientele walking in the door. So what we've kind of experienced, though, is when you think of Oklahoma, maybe we might think of like, fried chicken and like drinking a ton of soda and stuff like that. But I've noticed a little opposite problem in Colorado. It's the hard chargers that are doing too many workouts and fueling with all carbs. So to try to bring it back to a exercise perspective, if we were to take that same workout that Amber's doing, it's on a bike, if she were to go out and ride her bike but at a really hard pace for like an hour, there's going to be a lot of carbs burnt and a lot of cortisol released. So that's going to be really stressful on our body. The way that we structure things in class is you're only going for 50 seconds. So that's going to get the same type of anaerobic response when she's going really, really hard on that bike but gets a long rest as burning as many carbs out in the door, out in the world out there, going for an hour-long bike ride. But it's going to be way less stressful on our body. We're going to go really, really hard and then rest for a long time. The reason that is, there's not going to be quite as many carbs burnt because you're not like going for as long extended of a time. But we're going to get some of the positive things there with the human growth hormone release and a little bit spiked metabolism for the next 24 to 48 hours. So when we're talking about this type of stuff, question in a moment. Well, when we're talking about this type of stuff, I want you to kind of approach it with how do we want to fuel our body? How do we want to tell our body to use energy? So question before we move on, Kaylee?
So how would you structure an active recovery day then?
What do you mean?
Well, if she's going on an hour long.
Don't go really hard. That's all. Yeah. So we're talking she's going hour climbing up, a trail I'm burning, I'm hurting, but she's still able to sustain that. I do think that's, and we can talk about a run. Has anyone ever gone on a 3 or 5 mile run or something or longer or whatever? So there's a big difference between a recovery run and I'm running a 5K for time. Does that make sense? So is anyone a big runner in here? Anybody? Amber. Yeah, awesome. What's your 5K time, Amber? Give me a guess. Just give me a guess. Just give me your. What do you think? What do you think if Ashley Marcy? What was it? 23. So that's what was that? 740 mile or something like that? Because it's 3.1. All right. So let's use an example with Ashley. 740 mile is her fast pace that she can go. That is very taxing on the system. That is, you have a lot of cortisol release. You're burning a decent amount of carbs through that. Let's say that you went out and ran a 10-minute mile. That would be a completely different response. She could chat with Marcy, ask her how yesterday went, stuff like that. And then we would barely be dipping into those carb storage. We'd barely be dipping into the glycogen in our liver and in our muscle. And we could fuel off of that bulletproof coffee. So coming from a little bit different perspective, what we want to do with performance, because I know that some people in here are going for body composition, health. Some people are going for performance. Some people are I think I want both, Kevin. I'm not sure. We want to try to make that aerobic pace faster and faster. And I know that a lot of you guys have heard me say this type of stuff, but if Ashley trains at that 10-minute per mile pace, it's very easy effort for her. Let's say it's 60% effort. Then she does that a lot. Then she can go 60% effort, but it's a 9.5-minute mile pace. Then she can go 60% effort and it's a 9-minute mile pace. And I truly believe that she could eventually go 7 minutes and 40-second miles and it feels like 60%. What does that look like? Amber. Yeah. When you run, you're just kind of yeah, that's great. Yeah. And she's like, does that make sense? So in CrossFit, we're eventually trying to build up that aerobic pace so that we do just burn fat and oxygen for energy, and we're not having to dip into those carb stores because there's some other negative health impacts that go along with that. And even with them saying CrossFit Games athletes, if they're training 5 or 6 times a day, they need extra energy. That is 100% true. But the best CrossFit athletes that train 5 or 6 times a day are mostly aerobic, so they're not actually dipping into these carb storages. It's not as stressful on their body. So we can kind of mirror that, and we can get yeah.
Use fasting and ketosis to enhance their performance.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I actually wanted to touch on is like I just kind of like circumvented into this like backwards is I felt like when I fueled my workouts with fat, I like started to feel better and started to feel more powerful, more sustainable without hurting as bad, and like I was able to handle more workouts. And that's kind of the sport of CrossFit, and there's a lot of other sports like this, is the faster we can recover, the more volume you can handle without stressing your body, the better you can get. And then coming from more of a body comp and health perspective, if we're in that aerobic state and we're burning fat and oxygen for energy, it's just way less stressful on our body. We get the body composition gains and the performance gains. And I think this is a good thing, but I'd say everybody walking in the door, they're like, I want to look good naked, and I want to perform, and I want to I want everything, So this is, what'd you say?
Like,
I want to eat chips.
You want to have all that stuff, and you want to eat chips.
and eat chips, yeah, yeah. And so CrossFit is a good example because we touch on so many things, but that can be transferred over to so many other sports of endurance sports. Like the top endurance athletes are very, very aerobic, and even though a lot of them will have like the goos and get the carbs replenished back in, some of the top athletes don't actually have that many carbs. So it's kind of two different ways to approach it. And just even from my own personal experience of talking to many, many endurance athletes, the ones that do feel with carbs are the ones that are injured and that they cut their career short, and that they they basically have a ceiling with their performance. With aerobic, you don't really have a ceiling with your performance. It just takes a long time to build it. So, yeah. And so, diving into that, how do we force our body to use fat and oxygen for energy? Well, you put fat in oxygen, hopefully, into your body for energy. So exactly what Em was talking about, depending on our time of day, we're going to want to fuel with fat. And then we really only want to replenish the carbs that we've burnt in our workout. And that's a very complicated equation, but I want to try to simplify it as much as possible. Question?
Replacing glycogen?
Yeah, so let's talk. So anytime that you have any carbohydrate, your body is going to go through a process to turn that into glycogen. And it can be fructose, sucrose, it can be anything. It's going to turn into glycogen. So you need glycogen for optimal performance. It gets stored in your liver, but it's usually only about like 30 to 50 grams, depending on the size of the human. So your body will burn the liver glycogen first, and then it will go to your muscles. So the cool thing is that when you have any sort of protein, your body has this process called gluconeogenesis, where they turn protein into glucose. In addition to that, into glycogen, sorry. In addition to that, exactly what Em was talking about, you can run off ketones for energy.
Do you rely on that as an athlete, on the glucogenesis process, or do you personally add carbohydrates?
So it was my corny question before. It was like, do I want to be aerobic or anaerobic energy system? Both. So that's kind of what we're talking about is, my own personal approach is I'm going to put fat and oxygen in my body so that, before my workouts, so that I can run off of that energy source as long as possible, knowing that I'm storing some glycogen and my body can go to that at any time. And then after, let's say that I burnt 100 grams of glycogen, which is a lot. That would be an intense workout. That would maybe be multiple workouts. Then I'm going to try to refuel with 100 grams of glycogen. Now, you're never going to be able to know exactly how much you've burnt, but I want to give some, idea so that we can kind of adjust our workouts. So, if we, exactly what we're talking about with Ashley and with Amber, if Ashley goes and runs a 5K, it's at a very easy pace, and it doesn't feel very, very difficult. There's not much muscle burn or anything like that. She's just kind of breathing faster. What do we think we're burning there? Fat and oxygen. She's breathing faster. So she's probably not burning very many carbs there. And we could give a guess. I'm not going to give a guess like on the exact number that she's burnt. It's not very many though. I will tell you that. It's not very many carbs that she's burnt. Now, if she goes and runs that 5K, really hard effort, then she's going to burn a little bit more carbs there, but it's still probably not as many as what people think. If we go further, would you run a half marathon recently? Shit. Full, thank you very much. That's multiple hours of high heart rate. She's probably expended a lot of carbs that she's burnt there. So intensity of your workout, judging by your heart rate and judging by your pain level. Now, what gets confusing is because if we did class today and we were doing those pull-ups and we were doing the band pull-aparts, was anyone burning pretty good? Yeah. That's more of a muscular burn and not like a whole system burn. Can you kind of picture that when if we're doing tough ring rows and band pull-aparts or pull-ups and band pull-aparts, where does it burn? Like only at the muscular level. Does that make sense? So that's not going to be burning quite as much. It's also going to be way less stressful on your system. So if we were to go do, a 5K run and go really hard or, any 20, 30-minute workout or anything like that and just be hurting and in pain throughout our whole body the whole time, that's very, very stressful on the system. So I always try to get people to differentiate between some muscle burn that's actually like regenerative and helpful for our metabolism and for our hormones, and then like the beat down workouts. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any specific questions on that before moving on? Cool. So really, I want people to try to just think about it logically. Is when we're in more pain, when our heart rate is up, we're going to be burning more carbs. That's really the time that we should be replenishing. Other than that, we're going to try to limit that. And it's way less than what people think. And I think that's one of the that's one of the issues I think that we here can kind of help athletes with here in Colorado, is that there is a different way. We don't have to be having there's some endurance athletes that are having 600, 700, 800, 900, 1,000 grams of carbs a day, like crazy amounts like that.
Caught on here with as educated as the.
Yeah. You mean in the endurance community or what?
Well, I really haven't seen much of it.
Yeah.
This is the first presentation.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
That's focusing in that direction.
Awesome. I'm going to give you an answer that I don't think anyone wants to hear. It's like elevation. So you can adapt in 3 months pretty good, but you're not going to get quite to 100% for at least a year, maybe 2. Does that make sense? So with adapting to fat and adapting to ketones, as in regards to an athlete, in order to get better performance, it might take a full year or longer. And I don't think many people want to compromise it because, a lot of really high level endurance athletes and even, weekend warrior endurance athletes are, they want results, they want it quick. And if I know that I can run this fast and I start to try to burn ketones for energy and then it's just a little slower, it didn't work. I don't like that. Yeah. Does that make sense? So I think that's a big part why it hasn't caught on. And then kind of what I led off with is everyone's got a little bit different behind the scenes motive, So there's just so much misinformation in the nutrition community and from different parties and stuff like that. And we're going to touch on one of the misinformation in a moment here. Does that answer your question though? That's my theory. Yeah.
As you come to that attention and you're able to use that, it just gets easier throughout, and then the gains get even more tremendous. So it's really
Yes.
the more you do it, the better it is and the easier it is.
I just was surprised when I moved here. I thought for sure
Yeah.
that this would be a supportive community for that.
Yeah.
A lot of people bash it because when people were doing keto, they're like, "Oh, cream cheese, everything." Yeah, there's a right and wrong way.
Yeah.
So I think it's educating people on how to properly do it, and like you said, no
Yeah.
one wants to do it that way. They want to do it the cream cheese way, and that doesn't work.
Yeah. Yep.
Living in Boulder, I've seen more of the vegetarian, vegan style lifestyle.
Yeah, me too.
And so I feel like that is
Yeah.
part of the culture, especially just being in Boulder and a little
Yeah.
bit more of the indie vibe.
And we can touch on some of that stuff too. Maybe at the end here, if anyone wants to get out of here. But yeah, I think that's my theory. I also think there's a whole different thing with vegetarian veganism is that most meat is unhealthy in the U.S. Most of it is unhealthy, and we're with the grocery list that we gave out for Fit and 50, we're looking for grass-fed, wild-caught, free-range. That's a totally different animal than you guys probably haven't seen some of the farms that I've driven by in Oklahoma and Texas. It is, thousands of cows about in this size, and it's a different, but that's probably the beef that you're getting when we go to a lot of restaurants and stuff like that. So I think that is a big part of it, is that there are studies that show maybe some negative side effects for meat, but there's so many other components to that. What else were they eating? Most of those studies, people were eating really, really high processed foods and carbs, and then it's usually unhealthy meat. So it's just, I want people to differentiate. If we are eating meat, there's a difference between a healthy animal and a not healthy animal. But back to the ketosis question. I think a lot of athletes specifically don't go over that because it takes a long time to adapt. But one thing that I forgot to mention is once you adapt, it lasts a long time. So we've talked about this with our workouts. With those anaerobic, painful, high intensity workouts, that doesn't take quite as long to adapt. Like you can get in shape, quote unquote, pretty quick, but then it goes away pretty quick. This aerobic system and this fat adaptation lasts a long time. So if you invest the time to adapt, you'll get the benefits for a very long time. Does that make sense? Cool. And there's a lot of body comp health, applications to that and performance applications to that. Then we can, when we're coming up to a competition, maybe have a little bit more carbs, but then go back to fat adapted. But all right, so question, wake you guys up. All right, so I want you to look at these two meals. All right, this is legit something that I would have eaten about 10 years ago in my early 20s. All right, I got some fried chicken fingers. Hey, whoa, fried chicken fingers, French fries as a side. Let's get some summer shandies. It's a good, nice day. And then, I'm gonna be healthy. I'm gonna get the Skinny Cow ice cream sandwich. Yeah. And then, oh crap. I need to get some extra protein. I'll just have 2 scoop protein shake. Boom. All right. Then this other meal. Now I want you to notice this is like a salad that I would eat now. 16 ounces of salmon. Is that a little salmon or a lot? That is a lot of salmon. A baked sweet potato, just like medium baked sweet potato. 1 cup of white rice. I know that's carbs. Medium avocado, 2 hard-boiled eggs, omega-3, a cup of broccoli slaw. Is that a lot of broccoli or little? That's a lot. A cup of carrots, that's a lot. A half cup of radishes, a half cup of red onions, 3 ounces of mushrooms, a cup of spinach. Did I put kale in there? I thought I even had kale in there. Who knows? Yeah, it was even 2 cups of kale, I think, in there. All right, so I want you to raise your hand. Same, or meal 1 is healthier, or meal 2 is healthier? Do you think meal 1 is healthier? Anybody? Meal 2 healthier? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Wake up. Raise your hand. Only 1 person? 2 people? Who thinks meal 2 is healthier? Who thinks that they're exactly the same? All right, so I would disagree with that. All right, well, this is kind of I want to go over macro myths, because a lot of people do count macros, and we'll talk about why that would be helpful or why that would or would not be successful. So let's just break it down real quick. So in this meal, 103 grams of protein. In this meal, 122 grams of protein. Some more. Fat, 36 grams. Fat, 40 grams. Carbs, 118. Carbs, 120. Total calories. But wait, there's more protein, more carbs, more fat over here. Why is it less calories? Because fiber. Right? All right, so this is not the macro breakout I would suggest. I just want to throw that out there right away. This is not what I would suggest. That's really low fat. The reason that I structured it when I was looking up these examples is because when we count macros, it's usually very low fat. Has that been your experience, right? If anyone's done macro counting, it's usually very low fat, moderate protein, moderate to high carbs. And so I wanted to find a healthy example of the same type of breakout. So do not look at these percentages. This is just a very common percentage for macros. So when looking at these two, most people can see that, well, this is a way healthier meal. I'll probably be a lot healthier if I eat this every day than if I eat this. But when we count macros, they're exactly the same macros. So just want to illustrate that point is that macro counting, it's not just calories in, not just calories out. And everyone knows that, but then we're like, well, I don't know, maybe it is. I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter. So one of the big things, not even regarding gut inflammation, anything like that. Obviously, we've got some toxins with alcohol. Just looking at micronutrients. And these, I only pulled these up because I just used MyFitnessPal, and these were the only ones that they would let me show and pull up. I wanted to pull up a lot of other vitamins and minerals, but these are the only ones. So when we look at potassium, 750 milligrams over here, that's 16% of your daily value. This one's got 3,805 milligrams, 81% of your recommended daily value, sorry. Vitamin A, 6%. Vitamin A, almost 200% in that meal. Vitamin C, 55%. Vitamin C, 260%. Iron, 44%. Iron, 216%. So you can kind of just see, just off of the vitamins and minerals that MyFitnessPal let me pull up, it's way, way more micronutrients on this healthier side. It's a whole nother discussion on what the daily value recommended for the FDA is. I think people look at that and they're like, oh, I got to my 100%, I'm good to go. That is not thriving. That is surviving. That is like the things that they figured out back in the day that will prevent people from getting like scurvy, you know? So everyone in here, I think we're going for thriving in our lives, and we're not just trying to survive. So whenever we look at that like daily value and we start to see some of those micronutrients, I would like to see people, 300 to 500% for a lot of the things they recommend. There's a few of them where you wouldn't want to like crazy overconsume, but at the end of the day, I mean, the one thing I forgot to mention, sodium way higher over here. We do need sodium for, as an electrolyte for exercise, but this is probably coming from iodized crappy salt. We're talking like sea salt and, a little bit healthier situation. So, really, just wanted to illustrate that. When we like really think about logically about macros, I personally, this is really just my theory, is that when someone is not counting macros, they're really over-consuming on certain things, or maybe under-consuming. Who knows? And then when we count macros, it starts to get us closer to a healthier diet. It doesn't mean it's a thriving diet. On top of that, when we start to look at some of the services that encourage I don't know why I put that in parentheses. There's real services that count macros. They instinctively start to go, okay, well, here's your protein number, fat number, carb number. I know Tony counts carbs or counts macros. Do they have you measure anything else? No? Oh, okay. Taryn, do they have you measure anything else? No? Okay, what do they have you measure? I was expecting a yes.
Protein, carbs.
Besides protein, fat, carbs, anything? No sugar or anything? That's interesting. All right, so a lot of services will have people count sugar. Okay, so they start to say, okay, this is your max number that you can get for sugar. And then that's actually kind of interesting to me. I thought they did. They must have changed that. They used to do that. And then they also start saying, here's your minimum amount of fiber that you have to get. So when we start to add more things to that, then basically all that our macro counting are doing is making it a little easier to hit some of these things. And then when you can't have a certain amount of sugar and you have to have a minimum amount of fiber, then it's just kind of forcing you over here. And then you're like, getting in that kind of middle ground where maybe we're eating like half of this meal and then we're having like a little bit of French fries and we get to have a skinny cow for dessert and stuff like that. So really, it's almost tricking you into just eating a little bit healthier because it's hard to hit the specific macros that they give without some decent food. So my approach, and I'm not suggesting that you combine the two, but if we focus on quality, it's a lot easier to start to hit closer to those correct macro numbers. I didn't want to interrupt, exactly what Kaylee was saying is that when we're fat adapted, we tend to regulate our appetite way better, and your body knows what it needs, and it starts to crave more food when you need more food. It might be a little delayed, and it's satiated, and you're not hungry when you don't need more food. When we're having our carb cravings and we're like crazy high sugar, your body, like your brain's just like, I need more. So if we start to get into more of a fat adapted state, then you start to regulate your overall quantity because you'll be hungrier when you need more, and you won't be as hungry when you don't need as much. So that's kind of my take on macros. I am not opposed to it at all, but I am more like, hey, let's focus on quality, and then if we want to kind of nail down a little bit of the quantity, that's fine. But we need to get some of these other stuff in line with our endocrine system, with our digestion, and fueling for our workouts. So that's my spiel right there. I think Em might come back up here if you guys have any questions for us. By all means, we'll stick around as long as you want to answer any questions. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Any questions?
I can actually ask a good one real quick. When I said the 16-8, I just wanted to be clear, like, usually a common eating window would be like noon to 8 p.m. So at noon you can start eating and then please stop before 8 p.m. That way you've accumulated some fasting hours before you sleep. You only have 4 or 5 to fast the next day. It's just very easy that way. What other question?
We talk a lot about like sprints and body composition.
Yeah.
And how does that relate to?
Yeah. So when you're sprinting, let's just do a quick example. If you do a 10-second assault bike sprint, you're not burning any carbs. You're basically not. You're burning creatine phosphate, which is a really quick energy source. So your body can turn creatine phosphate into ATP, which is just like, it's like if you're trading dineros for dollars and then yen for dollars. If your body wants to create ATP, and it has multiple ways to create it. So creatine phosphate is going to be used right away when you're doing a quick sprint, and then if you go longer than that, it starts to circulate lactate in the system and use carbs for energy. So when we talk about sprints in here, it's rarely where we're doing a 3-minute sprint, right? We've never and the only time that we would really ever do that is for performance, for CrossFit performance, for performing well in your sport. But if we're talking health body composition, not really helpful. It's not gonna, if we do it correctly and we're smart about it and we kind of regulate our intensity and our volume throughout the year, and we only do that right when we need to peak for any sort of competition, whether it's CrossFit or 5K or anything like that, we can get all the benefits without the negative side effects. But if we do that all year long, it's gonna be pretty rough on us. Does that answer your question? So when we go shorter sprints, it's not really into that burning carbs for energy type state, and that's how we try to structure the programming. Yeah, Mandy, do you have a question?
Well, I usually work out 11:30 to 12:30.
Yeah.
So am I better off fasting all the way through, and then, but when I get home, I'm not hungry immediately after. So then it's still like, I never want lunch until like 2.
Okay, good. That's even better. So you're already naturally attuned to that, and that's a really, really great question. When you are in that fasting state, right, and then you go and work out, you hike that fast already at that point. And to the point where you're detoxifying, you're burning fat, you're doing all of these things, but also now you're training your body, okay, we use this to burn fat, but now let's use it to fuel this workout. And there are many athletes, even endurance athletes, that run 3 or 4 hours in a row, and they still use fasting as a performance enhancer.
The ultra marathoners for sure is a great example. It's kind of hard because a marathon, you don't have to run off of fat for energy, but you can't do like a 24-hour ruck, for example, or whatever, 48, whatever, 72, I don't even know, Casey, I don't even know anymore. But you can't do that long of a run for an ultramarathoner and, just utilize carbs. Like, it's just not going to go well. So they're very fat adapted. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, like the last time I did an extended fast, it was a 3.5-day fast, and I worked out each day, I lifted each day, and literally on the 3rd day, I felt the strongest and best that I had in that time.
Remember when I did an experiment when I had 5 or 6 day fast? I did the workout Cindy, right? All those push-ups or squats. I did that at the start of it, and then I did it at the end after 5 or 6 days. I had 2 rounds. The Cindy completely fasted.
That's awesome.
So like it's like hyperfuel. It's awesome.
I have a few questions.
Yes.
On the 3 days that you fasted, did you sell over the morning?
I didn't actually. No, on those days.
Just nothing? I don't know. I gotta try it. I can't.
Actually, I was fasting for life insurance. So I was getting life insurance exam, and I was
That's
getting my
awesome.
levels done on a type 1 diabetic. So I'm already discriminated against, basically. So I wanted to have the absolute best lab work that I could, and all research shows that fasting is the best way to do that.
Yeah.
So,
That's an awesome story. Good strategy, guys. Fast for your insurance exams.
I work out at night between 4:30 to 7. When, yeah.
That's really tough. And that, honestly, that complicates it a little bit. Here's what I'm going to tell you. If you feel like, because then you would only be getting, 8 to 9 or 8 to 10, right? 8 to sleep, right?
Yeah.
And so what I would say is, you're going to eat, let's say you open your window at noon, and you're taking on the noon to 8 window, right? 1 to 9 or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So you have, when that window opens, you eat then, and then you don't eat again until after you work out. But
Eat when your window opens and then
do not eat within 2 hours of a workout. So what happens is your body starts producing insulin and then crashing the workout. So give yourself a 2-hour bumper, I would say. Before that, allow it to digest a little bit, and then eat a good meal after you work out.
Yeah. So, I, like what Kevin was saying, I do the macro counting.
Yeah.
Can I still do that?
Absolutely.
Fasting?
In fact, we did
Oh, yeah.
30 fasting, and I counted my macros at the same time, and it was amazing.
Yeah,
I was
because I eat
able
all that
to.
carbs. Is that going to affect the whole fasting?
No, if all you're changing is within that window, if that's working for you, and you're just changing the times that you eat, you're still going to hit all of the benefits.
That brings up a really good point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Tony brings up a really good point. So, like I sent out nutrition emails to our members and stuff. We recommend specific things, and the reason that why I recommend specific things is because I think it's what the most people will be able to change and adapt, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's like the perfectly optimal. So I'm very hesitant when I wrote up there like macros and healthy eating. I'm very hesitant to be like anyone walking in the door like you should count your macros, you should eat perfectly clean, you should never have a drink of alcohol. They're gonna be like, hell no, I'm out of this place. But depending on what we know that we can accomplish, we want to get the lowest hanging fruit or vegetables first, and then kind of like maybe build off of that. So I wouldn't be hesitant to have Tony, do exactly the macros that you've been hitting. It's been working, for you, and then also trying to get it from quality sources. It's just that I think the majority would have trouble really diving that far in, and I don't want to scare anyone away and make them think that they have to do that. Yeah.
So 1 to 9 is probably.
Yeah. Or even 2 to 10. Yeah.
Eat right at 2, and then that way, because I go to bed at like 10:30, 11. So
Yeah,
getting a
exactly.
little bit of time to digest.
Yeah. And what you'll find is too, like, you'll listen to your body so much more at that time. Like your sleep's gonna change.
Yeah.
It's gonna change around that time. And the nice thing about fasting is how flexible it is. So you have to bump up. Instead of going from 1 to 9, like this isn't working for me, I'm going to call it 8.
Okay, I didn't know like
can
you switch like from one day to another, like if you got something going on or like
Yeah. My recommendation, if you know something's coming up and you want to eat at the wedding on Saturday or whatever, you'd rather eat at 2 than 4. Then whatever you do, just make sure you're hitting that fasting and then some the day before to accommodate for that. So you just increase the fast. And that way, once you open your window sooner at that time, let's change the day before. So that way, when you open your window sooner on that day, it's really fine. You're still in the same.
You will be hungry, like your body, like your hormones, like growing. Like it's on a timer. So that's why everybody's like at noon, people are just eating breakfast and lunch and dinner. They're like, oh, I'm so hungry. It starts waking up like half an hour before you usually eat.
Yeah.
So like your body will literally get on the clock with that stuff. That's what my first couple weeks are hard because you're like fighting that clock.
Yeah. We actually started to, for a while there, we wouldn't fast on Sundays. We just felt like complete crap that we were like, so just don't fast. Yeah. So you'll get to a point where you're just so in tune with it, it's not even a question.
Yeah, only 1 cup of coffee.
And you can have black coffee throughout the fast. Black coffee, water, but I always say that with a disclaimer. Do not have 10 cups of coffee throughout the fast, because you're, like I said to you, you're ruining that circadian rhythm, right?
Yeah.
That's what it really comes down to.
Like you want to put it out before, like
10
hours
or 11
before.
a.m.
Yeah, like well before you start eating.
Right.
So that,
Right.
Is
Yeah.
it
Water.
okay to do the Bulletproof with decaf?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're on the best.
Why though?
Absolutely. Yes. Actually, Bulletproof has a decaf.
I'm gonna edit it and make a video. I'll make a video. Yeah, and put the slides in there. But I guess we can send that out too. Sure. Sure. Thanks for coming, guys. And now for our timeshare presentation.